Hey class, welcome to week 3 of BUAD 201. This week is your first online week. I'd like to welcome you guys to your first online week for week 3, and keep in mind next week, week 4, will be another online week. If you guys need anything whatsoever, please don't hesitate to contact me. Again, all my contact information is right here on Titanium. You could email me or call me on my mobile phone or even text message me if it's easy. If you're having any issues whatsoever with understanding something or needing help with something, definitely give me a call. If there is any kind of IT issue, again, all the information is here on who to call or even email if you're having IT issues. I'd like to open up our syllabus before we dive into week 3 to give you an idea of what's coming up and just really refresh your memory. So this week we're going to be reviewing chapter 3 and 4 in a lecture, and you're going to be completing a week 3 activity. It really isn't too much of things that we're going to be doing this week, but at the same time I want you to make sure that you put in enough time and effort to have a good understanding of chapters 1 through 4. Even though we went over chapters 1 and 2 last week, that's really the foundation and platform of building business writing and having a good understanding moving forward. In addition, keep in mind at the end of this week on September 18th, your chapters 1 and 2 and chapters 3 and 4 mind tap homework is due. Keep in mind you only have to complete the homework that says counts towards grade, and I will show you what that looks like. Under week 3 for this week, I went ahead and I put this example. So when you log into MindTap, you're going to go to your different chapters. You're going to see this orange icon that says counts towards grade, chapter 1 assignment. That is the homework you need to complete. You don't have to worry about completing this video activity. You can see here it says practice. Only the items in orange, and the only items in orange that will ever be highlighted in orange are going to be your assignments, which are going to be your MindTap homework. So please keep that in mind. Again, you have chapters 1 through 4, which are going to be due at the end of this week on September 18th, which is going to be Tuesday by 11:55 p.m. So please make sure you complete those. All right, let's go into this week now. So we're going to look at a few different things this week, and I want you to keep in mind that we will have an activity to complete. So this week we're going to view chapters 3 and 4. Make sure you go through the actual chapters to have a good understanding before I lecture on them. That way you kind of know what I'm talking about, and it's easier to understand. I promise you, if you read the chapters before our lecture, the lectures will go that much more smoother for you. In addition, we're going to look at a different formatting style, which is memo. Remember, in this class, you're going to learn how to write 3 different formatting styles. A memo, which we're going to review today, a letter format, and then we're also going to be reviewing an email format. But you don't have to really worry about those other 2 right now. This week, we're just going to look at the memo format. So what I'd like to do now is I'd like to have you open up your week 3 class activity to get it ready for our lecture. So go ahead and click on the link. Open up the week 3 class activity document, and you'll see it's due Tuesday, September 18th. And again, go ahead and just insert your name here. And as I lecture, we're going to go over 4 activities today. Just go ahead and pause this video and answer each activity and take as much time as you need. And once you're ready to move on with the lecture, go ahead and click play. So let's go ahead and open up the chapter 3 and 4 lecture. So we will make this full screen. So today we're going to be talking about chapters 3 and chapter 4 from your textbook. So now that you should have your week 3 class activity document open, let's discuss a few different things. First, I want to talk a little bit about intercultural communication. This is something extremely important in today's day and age of communicating with organizations across the United States or even worldwide. Because right now, growing organizations, they're expanding into global markets. And as you've seen, there's been several corporations to do this, several companies that have been very successful and some that have been unsuccessful. Let's take a look at a couple different successful companies. You have McDonald's and KFC, but Right now, McDonald's, they're known worldwide. KFC is also known. They're big in other parts of the world. But they also learned as they opened up in other cultures. This is why intercultural communication is extremely important. Let's take a look at McDonald's. When McDonald's first opened up in Europe, they didn't take into consideration that everybody else besides Americans uses the metric system, pretty much everybody else. So a quarter pounder with cheese in McDonald's was a little confusing in Europe, especially in London. And people in London were asking, what's a quarter pounder? Is that big? Is it small? We don't know. It's like us using the metric system. What's a quarter kilogram? I don't know how big that is off the top of my head. I need to think about it for a little bit, or even ask Siri on my iPhone. But either way, what they did was they went ahead and they changed the name to a McRoyal with cheese. And this way it didn't confuse people, and it started becoming a good seller again. KFC, at first when they opened up in China, they used the same spices as they did in the United States. And in China, they have their spices that they use on their food, their traditional spices, which is what Chinese people like. And KFC was not selling. They were not successful at all in this market. So what they did was they went ahead and they changed their recipe a little bit, and they integrated Chinese spices into their chicken. And it became a huge success because people understood those types of spices, and that's what they like. But then you also have some unsuccessful companies such as Best Buy and Home Depot trying to open up in other countries international. You look at something like Home Depot. Home Depot, if you it's a DIY place, do it yourself. Well, in other countries, labor is so cheap that people still hire other workers to complete work, and DIY doesn't really exist because labor is so cheap. It's like me, when I'm doing some work at my home, sometimes I like to do a DIY project. I'll do it myself because it's cheap. I figure out how to do it and I learn it. But with the bigger projects, like laying tile and cutting it to a perfect piece, I hire other people to do that. Well, in other countries, it's cheap to do all of that. So people just hire everybody for small jobs or big jobs. Best Buy, a lot of people in China, or there's other countries that when they know what they want to buy, they walk into a store and they purchase it. The thing is, with Best Buy, you walk in, you can compare products, have a good understanding of what product does what. Well, it was really unsuccessful in some other Asian countries because a lot of times certain people, they like to go in, they know what they want to buy, and they just buy it right away. So Best Buy didn't work in other countries, globally in other countries. So culture and communication. So according to the book, the culture is a complex system of values, traits, morals, and customs shared by a society. And the thing is that you have to keep in mind moving forward that every culture is going to be different. Whether even if it's multiple cultures in the United States, having a culture growing up in different parts of the United States or different cities or even different parts of the world, we all have different cultures that we need to understand. And this is why you need to take into consideration the culture of other people. You have verbal and nonverbal comprehension, and it can be difficult, especially nonverbal. Other cultures may do certain things that you don't understand. This is why it's important to try to learn it, especially if you have a client who may be from another culture or even a coworker. So the good thing is culture can be learned. So go ahead and complete class activity 1. You're going to watch the following video, and it's a clip from the movie Lost in Translation with Bill Murray. If for some reason the link doesn't work taking you from here, you can always just Google Lost in Translation whiskey commercial, and it will pop up on Google, and you can watch it in multiple other ways. I want you to write one paragraph on how you perceive this cultural communication scene. What were some of the difficult things Bill Murray was trying to understand? If he spoke Japanese and understood the culture, how do you think he would have reacted to the director's response? How would the commercial shoot have been? So take some time, go ahead and pause this video and complete class activity 1. You could click on this link here and it will take you to the video. You may have to watch a commercial first though. Let's see if it will play.
With the Wix logo make.
Yeah. So go ahead and watch that video and then continue this lecture when you are completed. Okay, now that you have completed class activity 1, let's move on. Let's take a look at how culture combines the visible and invisible. So the way we act is the most visible part of our culture. These are like our words, our body language, and our gesture, and this is what other people can see. Other people can see the way you speak, the way your body language is taken when you hear something or when you're talking to someone about something, and gestures as well too. Maybe the way you use your hands, or even making eye contact with people. Then you have under the surface. These are like the unspoken rules. These are determined by our beliefs and values, attitudes and biases, feelings and fears, and our upbringing. This is what people can't see, what they don't know about us. Like, many of you don't know that, when I was growing up, I had strict parents. When I was in high school, I couldn't go out a lot, and I had to be home very early. And that's just how I was raised. So going into college, that was the mentality that I had. So that's something you may not know about me because you can't see it. This is under the surface. And keep in mind, the invisible do outnumber the visible. And you could see this in figure 3.3 of your textbook, or if you have the online book, it's section 3-2A. And this is what it looks like. This is our visible culture up at the top of the iceberg, and at the bottom is the invisible culture. And the visible culture is what you can see, the invisible culture is what you can't see. Beliefs and values, such as your religion, your friendships, your patterns of leadership, or even your attitudes and biases. Do you have respect for elders or not? People don't know this when they see you. They only can understand it once you actually go into that. So keep in mind the different types of invisible culture, and the visible culture, because this is something you need to consider when you meet someone from another culture, or you work with someone from another culture, or even have a client from someone with another culture. So let's go ahead and complete class activity number 2. So that figure 3.3, section 3-2A of your book shows how culture combines the visible and invisible, which is this slide right here. It's important in business writing because you may be communicating from people who come from a different culture than your own. So for this activity, just write less than one paragraph. It could be 2, 3, 4 sentences, discussing one of the invisible cultures listed in figure 3.3. So take a look at these invisible cultures here. So maybe you want to talk about the feelings and fears. So talk about which one you chose. What is it? Describe it a little. How does a person from a different culture of your own compare to this? Discuss how this invisible culture plays a role in your own culture. So go ahead and complete this activity. Pause this video now, and once you're ready to move on, go ahead and resume the video. Okay, now that you've completed class activity number 2, I'd like to talk a little bit about successful nonverbal intercultural communication. So nonverbal skills in another culture are difficult to learn, as discussed. This is like eye contact, facial expression, postures, and gestures. Like something from my culture. I come from a Greek culture. And when someone wants to say yes to you, if you ask someone a question and they want to say yes, they kind of tilt their head down very quickly, and they go sideways at the same time. You can't see me doing it, but it's just something that they do. And this means yes in our culture. And for someone who may come out of our culture, if let's say you're coming out of the airport and a taxi cab driver pulls up and you say, can you please take me to the Athens hotel in downtown? And this taxi driver nods at you like that, you may seem a little confused. Do I get in the car? Do I not get in the car? I don't understand. So that's a nonverbal skill of another culture. It's difficult to learn, but it can be learned when you surround yourself with people from other cultures and better understand them. And of course, you have to think about how nonverbal cues affect communication. For example, let's say you're giving a presentation and you come to an important part of your presentation and your boss raises their eyebrow. And when their boss raises the eyebrow, you kind of take back at it and you think to yourself, is my boss doubting the statement I'm saying, or are they considering it? Because an eyebrow can go either way. So these are the nonverbal cues that you need to understand, that you can learn. And the more you interact with people of other cultures, the more you will learn on how to respond to these nonverbal communications cues. And there's a good example that your book talks about with the European office layout, where it's saying how an open floor plan and natural light allow for nonverbal communication and understanding, because you can actually see when you have an open office floor plan, you can see other workers, you can see how they communicate, how they work, their body language, their gestures, and the more that you are exposed to the way other people communicate, the better you're going to learn about their culture. And how does technology and social media affect intercultural communication? So what's great about technology and social media, it actually bridges the gap between cultures. It allows for quick interaction. Quick interaction allows for you to be more social. So social media, such as Twitter, it offers an opportunity of intercultural engagement. You can see how other people from from other countries, they are on social media. You can see how they talk, how they interact, and how they really kind of talk with other people. And this is something that you can actually learn as you continue to communicate with people from other countries or cultures. There's also global business and social media use. So businesses are building relationships on Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube. If you think about an example, it's great. You have customer service now on social media. I remember one time I was at an airport with United Airlines, and I went on their social media page and I posted, "Hey United, this is my flight keeps getting canceled. This is the fourth time. What's going on? I need help." All of a sudden, I received a message from United Airlines. They said, "Please give us your phone number and we'll call you." They called me right away and they booked me on an earlier flight so I wouldn't have to keep getting worried about my flight getting canceled more and more. So the good thing, social media, you're able to interact and communicate with other people. So take a look at this. This is from your textbook. This is the communication process, figure 4.1 in your book. This is understanding the communication process. Number one, the sender gets an idea. Then they think about it and they encode the message and they select the channel of how they're going to send it, maybe by email, text message, face-to-face communication over the phone, whatever it may be. And once the message is sent, you go to step 4. That's when the receiver decodes the message. They listen to it and they decode it and they understand it, and then the feedback returns to the sender and they send something back. So let's take a look at the barriers that create misunderstanding. So you have bypassing, with you miss each other with a word's meaning. For an example, maybe your boss asks for help. So you assume you help with a little, but your boss asks you to do the entire mailer. So let's say your boss comes up to you at your desk and they say, "Hey, we're creating a mailer. We're sending it out to 1,000 people. I need help." So you think to yourself, "Okay, cool. I'll help my boss. Maybe he or she needs a tagline or help with the creative process." And now all of a sudden your boss says, "I need you to do the mailer for me." So the word meaning, which is bypassing, can really be a misunderstanding depending on your culture. Differing frames of reference. We all have our own individual frames of reference. Example, maybe negotiations between American and international company. There's negotiations that are taking place for like 6 months. Let's say there's a big construction company from America. They're trying to create a building in an international with an international company, and the negotiation for the contracts are taking 6 months. It's taking a very long time. Well, the Americans are upset because the negotiation took too long. They want to get started on the job. Whereas the international company looks at it as wow, we built a relationship. We're happy that these negotiations took place because now we have a relationship to move forward. So your frame of reference is really going to help decide how you view things. This is like your perception. Even the lack of language skill can be a barrier that creates misunderstanding. Different languages between people can increase confusion between them, and even distractions. Shaping intelligent message can be a distraction if one is emotional. Someone can perceive your email in an emotional way, which you didn't want to send it in that way. So these barriers create misunderstanding. So for your class activity number 3, miscommunication can occur quite a bit in any professional organization. However, if you prepare yourself with understanding the different types of miscommunication, you can really help increase awareness so it doesn't happen again. So for this activity in 3 to 4 sentences, I want you to discuss an example of when there was miscommunication between maybe you and a friend or family or even a coworker. Why did this happen? Could this have been prevented? If no, why not? If yes, how? So go ahead and talk a little bit about that and give me a good idea of showing me that you understand when miscommunication occurs and what you could have done to fix it or even prevent it. Go ahead and pause the video now, and once you're ready to move on, go ahead and click play. All right, now for the final stretch of our lecture today, understanding the 3x3 writing process is a guide. So the 3 by 3 writing process, we're going to be talking about it all terms. So I don't want to throw all this information at you guys right now because it's going to be quite a bit to really understand. But I want you to have a gist of these different steps. We have the first step is pre-writing. This is when you really analyze, anticipate, and adapt to what you're about to write. You understand what your purpose is. You look at the audience. Who's your audience that you're sending this message to? What kind of techniques can you use? This is where you really do your brainstorming. Then you have part two, which is drafting. This is when you research, you organize, and you actually draft what it is you want to write about. You gather data, you organize how you're going to write it, what kind of information are you going to put first? Are you going to put the good news first, the bad news? These are things that you need to think about, and then you start writing it. And then revising. Revising is just as important as pre-writing and drafting. You need to make sure that you give yourself enough time and understanding to edit a document, because a lot of times you may be unclear in what you write and you don't understand that you are unclear. This is why you need to read it over, proofread it, evaluate what you're talking about. Can you take out some jargon? Can you make sentences a little shorter to make the wording more concise? And that's something you need to do in business writing. You need to be very concise in your writing style. So for your last activity, I want you to really understand, get a good idea of the 3 by 3 writing process as a whole. So this can help you organize your ideas and formatting of a writing document. So in 3 to 4 sentences, I want you to pick one of the 3 different steps of the 3 by 3 writing process and describe why you think this process is important. Try to include some examples to back up your reasoning and provide a link between your examples and reasoning. So why do you think this process is important? And write some examples. Maybe one time you turned in a homework assignment, you didn't proofread it, and you got a C on it because you didn't proofread it. That's the link between your example and reasoning. So go ahead and complete class activity number 4, and when you are done, let's go back here. When you are done, you can upload your Word document up here to the week 3 class activity section. Just click add submission, upload your document here, and you are good to go. And that will be your class activity 3 for this week. I'm not sure if it's on your computer too, but if you do upload your document, make sure your Word document for your class activity 3 is closed, and then try to attach it here. A lot of times it won't let you attach it if you have it open on your computer. So save it, close it, save it to your desktop documents, wherever you want to save it to, even your downloaded folder, and then close it out and then upload it here. So what I want to do now for the final part of this lecture is I want to look at the memo format. And this is the first format that you need to understand and have a good idea of how to compose it. So a memo they're documents that use standard from. And I'm going to go back and forth from slide to slide. This is slide 2 and this is slide 3. So I want to go back and forth so you guys can see a few different things. So memos are documents that they use standard form. They have to, from, date, and subject, which you can see here. We have the date, to, from, and subject. This is where you write the date. This is who you're writing your memo to, who it's from, and this is the subject of the memo. For example, when I was working at a .com, the HR department sent out a memo to everybody in the organization talking about how the parking structure is going to be resurfaced and it's going to be closed for 5 days during the holiday time. But for those of people who were coming in, they had information presented for them as well. So it said here, date, whatever the date may have been, I think it was in September, so September 1st, 2012, and it said to all employees of auction.com, and it said from Human Resources Department, and the subject line said resurfacing of parking lot, updated information below. And then the opening paragraph, it opened up and it said, employees, we wanted to let you know we are going to be resurfacing our parking lot in the upcoming days of the holiday season. We have some information below that will help you get around, the mess that's going to be occurring. And then it had a bolded title and it said reasoning for resurfacing. And underneath they went ahead and they said we're going to be resurfacing the parking lot for several different reasons, and then they bullet pointed the reasons similar to what this is here. And it said first reason, the first reason was to insert more parking spaces so we can fit more cars in our actual parking lot. Also to have more handicap spots, and then also to have more visitor parking spots. And they discussed how the parking lot was old and it needed to be resurfaced. Then in the next paragraph here, they had a heading right here, and that heading said additional places to park when parking lot is closed. And they had three different paragraphs. And the first paragraph said it had an address, and I can't remember what the address was, but it had the address, and it said to park in this building, you will enter the code pound 2121 to get into this parking lot. This is our neighbor building. They have agreed to let us use their parking lot during this holiday time. Then the second paragraph said train station 1 block away. There's free public parking at the train station. You can park there and walk over our building. And then the third one, it had a free park and ride about I think it was about 2 miles away, where you can park there, hop on the train, get off, and then walk into the building. So a memo, this is the format that I'm going to be looking for. It's never more than 1 page long, and for your in-class writing assignment, if it is in the memo format, it's going to not be more than 1 page long. It's going to look something very similar to this. Now, this can be sent on paper or even as an attachment in an email. So you could print out this document and put it on everybody's desk, or you could save it as a Word document, attach it to an email, and send it to everybody in the company. And of course, again, this can be used for routine correspondence. So the memo, which is this figure here, it shows a typical format. It doesn't have to have recommendations, findings, and analysis, but it needs to give informational support, meaning you don't have to have these titles here. But when you do put titles for your different sections, just make sure they correspond with the sections. Separate the information in the memo with the proper headers as shown. So when you do separate the information, such as this memo shows, make sure you use the proper header. And then you can also click on this link here, and it will take you to the sample memo format. And Purdue OWL has some great they have some great ideas on how you can write parts of a memo. You can click here and it shows you the different parts to give you a really good idea of what to expect. So there is a memo format activity. This isn't something that you have to turn in, but this is just some practice if you want to get some idea on how to write a memo. So go ahead and read the situation. It has an activity, and it will really help you get going on how to write a memo. Again, you don't have to turn this in. This is just for your own sake to practice on how to write a memo. So that is it for this week's lecture. If you have any questions, again, all my contact information is up here. You can text me, call me, or even email me here. So I have my mobile phone number, and then I also have my email here as well. I look forward to your guys' completion of week 3 activity. Remember, next week, week 4, is another online week, and then week 5, this is when we're going to meet live. So please make sure you are in our live class, because we will have a librarian coming into class to speak. So again, if you have any questions, please feel free to contact me, and I will see you guys online next week for week 4 again. Take care.